Everything on this list claims it will make you run faster. As a coach and physio, the annoying part is that some of these work exceptionally well, but it's not the same things that you hear about the most. Because some of the most talked about things on this list work a lot less than the hype wants you to believe. So today I will be ranking all of these things on this tier list based on how important each of them are to actually make you a better runner. From game changer to overhyped. I'm doing this based on scientific studies that I will talk about, but also based on what I've seen over and over again after working as a coach and physio for the last decade. First up to get ranked is the single most talked about topic in all running content right now. But is it really a game changer for your performance? It's shoes, and specifically super shoes, shoes with this carbon plate, this super bouncy, super lightweight and highly energy return giving foam that has become a staple to all runners who want to run fast in the last decade. These kind of shoes often comes with a high price tag as well, but is it worth it if you want to run faster? The shoe is obviously not the biggest reason anyone will run fast, but since the super shoe revolution, the shoes actually matter quite a lot. There has been plenty of studies showing runners of all abilities spend less energy running on the same pace with these kind of super shoes compared to traditional racing shoes. And this isn't only shown in lab studies. In this observational study, tracking actual marathon results, they estimated that switching to a super shoe was associated with a finish time improving somewhere between 0.6 to 2.8%. So for someone running a 3-hour marathon, that is 1 to 5 minutes, which of course is pretty massive for all of you who want to chase that next marathon personal best. And since this study came out in 2020, the shoe tech have continued only getting better and better. So buying a pair of super shoes is a genuine, measurable performance enhancer. So is it a game changer here on my list? It's tempting to put it there, but believe me, some of the things we'll talk about later make an even bigger difference, or a lot bigger difference, because the shoes can only improve the fitness you already have. But I will put them in big difference. Now to the complete opposite end of the spectrum, something free everyone on the internet talks about, and something that is constantly sold to you as the secret that will make you faster and keep you injury free. So I have combined this category into running form changes and stretching hacks. If you search how to run faster, within minutes somebody will be telling you to stop heel striking, make this little change in your running form, or stretch this one specific muscle, and you will run faster with less injuries. And it sounds logical, but running technique isn't that simple. I've talked a lot about this already on the channel, and I'll say it again here. This whole category is overhyped compared to what the actual studies have been able to show. And it is often oversimplified. And it's the same problem with stretching, it's why I put them into the same category. And in this pretty recent systemic review here, they found no difference in running economy, or no changed running economy after runners were put through some sort of stretching program. And this doesn't make all stretching and all running technique changes in all scenarios bad. Working on improving specific mobility limitations or running gait retraining has its place, mostly in specific injury cases and only if it's done gradually. So where should I put this on the list? So there's a big lack of good evidence supporting this as a modality to make you run faster. So I will put it on situational, I think is the right one. For some people it will make a real difference, but for most of us it's not the big change that will make you run a lot faster. Okay, so now let's try to find a place for strength training in this tier list. And this isn't easy for me to categorize on this list, because done properly, it's a genuinely powerful tool. And this systematic review found that strength training had a large beneficial effect on your running economy. And there are plenty of studies showing the same thing. So what should you actually do when it comes to strength training? As a physio, I would say keep it simple, and as with everything, with a gradual progression. Doing simple things like calf raises, split squats, squats, step-ups, and 1 to 2 short sessions a week is enough for most running-focused athletes. And the point is that for someone who wants to run faster, strength training should not be competing with the running. If you're skipping key running sessions because your legs are wrecked from the strength work, you did too much. So where does this land on the list? Honestly, not as high as I would have ranked it a few years ago. I watched too many world-class runners do close to zero structured strength training and still run faster than anyone watching this or me ever will come close to. And you get good at what you actually train for. And strength work will never replace running itself. And although I think finding a balance and doing some of it is great for most of us, it is not needed to run fast. So I think I will put this in the useful tier. Now let's talk about one of the items on this list that quickly can become the most expensive thing. Far more expensive than a pair of super shoes, and it is altitude training. The pitch sounds like a cheat code. Go on a training camp to the mountains and live where oxygen is scarcer, and your body will manufacture more red blood cells to compensate. And when you come home, you will be an oxygen-snapping aerobic beast. And elite athletes have leaned to altitude training camps for decades, and there's real physiology supporting it and good studies. A meta-analysis from 2025 found that altitude training compared with training at low altitude significantly increased hemoglobin markers and improved time trial performance. So it absolutely can work well, but it comes with real cost. Unless you happen to already live up there on a high altitude, going on training camps is of course expensive and of course not something everyday athletes like you and me can do all of the time. You usually need several weeks for it to be worth doing, and it's easy to overtrain at altitude because the lower oxygen and the worse recovery that brings. But of course, if you're an elite athlete with the time, the coaching and a real plan, it can make sense. But for most of you watching this, altitude training is not the missing piece standing between you and a new PR. So where should I put this on the list? I think for everyday runners, I would put it on situational, I think is appropriate. Now let's talk about a similar idea, much cheaper and far more accessible. Also genuinely unpleasant if you actually do it right. So this next thing is heat training, and it's starting to become really hyped in the endurance world, and unlike altitude, anyone can access heat for free. Run in hot conditions, simply overdress on purpose, or use sauna or hot baths for passive heat training. And the physiology behind this is that the heat stress forces some adaptations. Blood plasma goes up, red blood cell count goes up, and VO2 max increases, and your body learns to handle warm conditions. In this study here by Lorenzo and his colleagues, they had trained cyclists go through 10 days of heat acclimatization training, and they found that they improved both in hot conditions and in cool conditions afterwards, and with the plasma volume increase being roughly 6.5%. And this broader meta-analysis on heat acclimatization backs this up across time trial performance, VO2 max, perceived effort, and blood plasma levels. So it works, particularly if you're racing somewhere warm. And honestly, this might be one of the most interesting frontier in training science right now. And there's a wave of new research on both active and passive heat exposure pointing toward real meaningful effects. Okay, so where should I put this one on the tier list here? I think if you're training for a hot water race, this climbs all the way into big difference tier for sure, because then you're getting the pure performance boost and the heat acclimatization stacking together. But as a general recommendation for the average runner, I will put the heat training in the useful tier. Before we get into the first thing I will rank as overhyped, and later the things I will be ranking highest on this whole tier list, I want to present the sponsor of this video, Coros. And a watch won't magically make you run faster, but it can for sure help you make better training decisions. And that's why I use Coros watches for all my training, and my current daily driver is the Apex 4. It's a rugged watch with every running and multi-sport feature you could ask for. And one of the things I love most about all of my Coros watches is the battery life. I think that tech should never get to dictate your behavior, and a watch that you have to charge every single day isn't something I'm interested in, at least. And ever since I switched to Coros watches 5 years ago, I genuinely stopped thinking about battery life. You charge it so rarely, so it stops being a variable at all. And two newer features I didn't expect to care that much about, but I have actually come to love, is that you can now take calls directly on the watch. So when you're out on the trails, you can just talk directly through your wrist and listen to the person you're talking to through the speakers in the watch, instead of having to dig out your phone. And with a recent new software update, the Apex 4 and all other newer Coros watches got voice control too. So now I can just say start a run or set an alarm for 6 AM instead of pressing anything. And I think that is what good tech should look like when it's done right. It removes friction and makes you less dependent on the phone that's trying to suck you in the rest of the day. So thanks Coros for continuing to build these great products for us runners, and for the updates that keep making them better. Okay, so let's try to rank cold water baths on this tier list. The pitch for this sounds good, because cold can reduce inflammation, less inflammation means less soreness, and less soreness means faster recovery. But the thing is that the inflammation you're rushing to shut down with an ice bath or a cold shower isn't just damage. It's actually a part of the signal your body gets and uses to adapt to the training you just did. And there is actually this really interesting study here where they did sort of a one-leg study. In this study they had the participant train both legs, but after the workout one leg was cooled down in cold water. And what they found was that the cold water leg had lower muscle protein synthesis after the training. So this does not prove that ice baths are always bad, but it does suggest that if your goal is to maximize muscle adaptation, doing cold water immersion straight after training might actually hinder the adaptations you are trying to get through your training. But I don't want to oversimplify this into all the cold water or ice baths are bad for you. If you're in a really heavy training block, racing a multi-stage event, or you simply need to perform again tomorrow, cold water immersion can still help you feel less sore and recover faster for the next performance. But if you're in a normal training block and keeps jumping directly into an ice bath after every hard session because it looked really cool and good on someone's Instagram, you might actually be sabotaging the exact adaptation you're chasing with your training. So I would put this in the overhyped category. Let's talk briefly on the next thing I'm going to rank here on the list, that is supplements. Of course, a really broad category, and honestly most of what's marketed as the next big thing can often be quite pointless, but a handful actually have solid evidence behind them. Let's focus on the three that actually do: caffeine, nitrate, used usually from beetroot juice, and sodium bicarbonate. All three studies have consistently shown can make a meaningful difference on race day, or help you get more out of a tough training session. Caffeine and sodium bicarbonate specifically, I really believe in these, both based on a lot of solid evidence and studies around them, and a lot of my own racing as well. Because if you tested it and your stomach handles it well, racing on caffeine and bicarb is a completely different feeling. You simply feel better, and studies repeatedly back that up too. So I would say for most of you, getting this right and getting your stomach to handle it could be worth sitting in the big difference category right after the super shoes, I would say. But the supplement industry as a whole, the powders, fancy electrolytes, and the next big thing promises, drags this overall category down a bit, but let's put it in useful. We're getting close to the end of this list, only 3 items left and still nothing in the game changer, but that will change soon. Because now we'll talk about the race execution. Again, a quite broad topic, since in this I will include the taper period for your race, fueling your race, and your pacing execution. And this, I would say, is one of the most underrated categories in amateur running. Many runners spend months building up this great fitness, buy the most expensive shoes and gear they can find, then casually throw all of that away in the final week or on race day through not getting these three things right. So let's talk about taper first. Doing too hard or long workouts the last week or last days leading into a race can destroy your race completely. Many runners often tend to chase some sort of proof in their shape in training close to a race, and it ends up costing them the good legs on race day. The final week is not the week to prove your fitness, this is what the race is for. And when it comes to fueling, for longer races, carbohydrate availability can become the actual main limiter. So for longer races like half marathon and up, using a high carb fueling method and getting it right, I promise you can make a bigger difference than any expensive pair of shoes you can buy. And getting your pacing right, running an even or negative split will not only make you run significantly faster, it will also make the racing experience so much better compared to going out too hard. So as you probably already understood, this is high on my tire list. I would actually put this as the first thing in the game changer tire. Because getting the taper, the pacing and the fueling right can genuinely save you many minutes in longer races and make you actually enjoy racing a lot more as well. The next item on my list, the second last one, is intensity distribution in your training. Most runners know that some higher intensity running is important if you want to get faster. The real challenge is finding that sort of right balance, because if you run most of your runs a little bit too hard, sooner or later that often leads to injury, burnout, or simply losing the joy and motivation for running. But if you only run easy all of the time, that can work well for a while. Especially if you're a newer runner, you will improve just from this. But to keep improving, you usually need either a lot more volume, which most runners do not have time for, or you need some high quality, high intensity work in the plan. So the key is to run your easy runs easy enough and then make your hard sessions hard enough to give you that proper stimulus, but not so hard that they destroy the rest of the week and they make you not able to run the full training volume that you have planned, or increase your injury risk. Especially in base training, I think many runners would benefit from keeping a lot of their higher intensity work closer to the lactate threshold, following that Norwegian threshold model, instead of turning every single interval session into an all-out sufferfest. Because that allows you to train with better consistency, enjoy more of your running, and it also helps you get this next point, the last point of this list, right, which, spoiler alert, will go straight into the game changer tire. So intensity distribution is very close to game changer as well, but I would put it into big difference. Time for the last point of this whole list, and it is training volume. It's boring, but it's true. If you want to get faster, run more. In many ways, running is the world's simplest sport. If you run a lot, you will get better at it. So this goes straight to the game changer, as mentioned, of course, and I'll put it ahead of the race execution as well, because this is the main pillar of training. So before considering any of these other things on this list, a recreational runner who wants to improve should ask themselves, can I find a way to safely and gradually improve my running volume? Because that will over time matter more than all of these other things, although they, as mentioned, also can make a real difference. So running volume matters enormously, but it has to be added gradually and sustainable over time. What did you think that I ranked too high or too low on this list, and were there things that you think that I missed completely here? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks again to Coros for sponsoring this video. You can check out all of their products here. Train smart, have fun, and I'll see you in the next video.